My name is Elsa, and I am 38 years old. I am sitting in my daughter's bedroom right now staring at the vision board she made when she was 10. It has pictures of MIT, of laboratories, of women scientists changing the world. For 12 years, my husband and I saved every penny we could for her college fund. I thought we were building her future together. I never imagined that the person who would destroy her dreams would be her own father. Before I share what happened, I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If stories about betrayal and justice resonate with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. This is a story about how my 12-year-old daughter outsmarted the man who broke our family. Stay with me. I used to believe that my family was the picture of happiness. We lived in a lovely 2-story house in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. It had a white picket fence, a small garden in the backyard, and a tire swing that my husband Kevin installed when our daughter Mia was 5 years old. From the outside, we looked like we had everything figured out. And for the longest time, I thought we did. I work as an accountant at an insurance company downtown. It is not the most glamorous job in the world, but it pays well and gives me stability. I have always been the practical one in our marriage. Kevin, on the other hand, was the charmer. He worked as a sales manager at a car dealership and everyone loved him. His colleagues, his clients, even random strangers at the grocery store. He had this way of making people feel like they were the most important person in the room. When I first met him 16 years ago, that charm swept me right off my feet. We got married after dating for just a year. Looking back, maybe that was too fast. But at the time, it felt right. Kevin was everything I thought I wanted. He was confident, ambitious, and he made me laugh until my stomach hurt. When I got pregnant with Mia a year after our wedding, he cried tears of joy. He held my hand through every doctor's appointment, every ultrasound, every moment of morning sickness. I thought I had found my partner for life. Mia came into this world screaming with a full head of dark hair and the most determined look in her eyes. Even as a baby, she was different. She was curious about everything, always reaching for things, always wanting to understand how the world worked. By the time she was 3, she was asking questions that I could not answer. Why is the sky blue? How do birds know how to fly? What are stars made of? I knew then that she was special. 4 years after Mia, we had Lucas. He was the opposite of his sister in almost every way. Where Mia was quiet and thoughtful, Lucas was loud and energetic. He loved sports, especially soccer, and he could make friends with anyone. Our family felt complete. 2 kids, a nice house, stable jobs. We had made it. The best part of our life together was our Sunday mornings. Kevin would wake up early and make pancakes for everyone. He had a special recipe that his grandmother taught him with cinnamon and vanilla and just a hint of nutmeg. Mia and Lucas would sit at the kitchen counter in their pajamas, watching him flip the pancakes with theatrical flair. He would pretend to almost drop them, and the kids would squeal with delight. Those mornings felt sacred to me. They felt like proof that we were doing something right. But the thing I was most proud of was Mia's college fund. Kevin and I opened a savings account for her the month she was born. Every single month, without fail, we deposited $500 into that account. It was not always easy. There were months when money was tight, when the car broke down or the roof needed repairs. But we never missed a payment. Not once in 12 years. By the time Mia turned 12, we had saved almost $87,000. It was enough to cover most of her tuition at a good university, maybe even MIT, her dream school. She'd been talking about MIT since she was 9 years old, ever since she watched a documentary about the engineers who designed the Mars rover. She came running into our bedroom that night, her eyes shining with excitement. "Mom, Dad," she said, "I know what I want to be. I want to build things that go to space." Kevin picked her up and swung her around the room. "My little rocket scientist," he called her. "We are going to make sure you get there." Mia knew about the college fund. We told her when she was 10, wanting her to understand the value of what we were building for her. She cried when we told her, not out of entitlement or expectation, but out of gratitude. She hugged us both so tightly that I could barely breathe. "I will not let you down," she whispered. "I promise." She kept that promise. Every report card was filled with straight A grades. Every science fair project won first place. Her teachers called her gifted, exceptional, one of the brightest students they had ever taught. I would watch her study at the kitchen table, her brow furrowed in concentration, and my heart would swell with pride. This child was going to change the world, and we were giving her the tools to do it. Kevin seemed just as proud as I was. He would brag about Mia to anyone who would listen. His colleagues, his clients, the neighbors, the cashier at the grocery store. "My daughter is going to MIT," he would say. "She is going to be someone important." He talked about her like she was his greatest accomplishment. I loved him for that. But looking back, there were signs that something was wrong. Small things that I dismissed or explained away because I wanted to believe in the life we had built. Kevin started working later than usual. He said he had meetings with VIP clients, important deals that required his personal attention. I believed him. After all, he was a sales manager. His job was to close deals. He also became more protective of his phone. He used to leave it lying around the house, never caring who saw his messages. But suddenly he started keeping it in his pocket at all times. He changed his password. When it rang, he would walk to another room to answer it. I noticed, but I did not say anything. I trusted my husband. We had been together for 15 years. What was there to hide? Then there was the way he started paying attention to his appearance. New clothes, a gym membership, expensive cologne that I had never smelled before. He started getting haircuts every 2 weeks instead of every month. He even whitened his teeth. I thought it was a midlife crisis. I thought he was just trying to feel young again. Maybe I even found it endearing. My husband trying to look good for me after all these years. One evening, Mia and I were watching TV together while Kevin scrolled through his phone on the couch. He laughed at something on the screen, this soft, intimate laugh that I had never heard before. Mia looked at me with a strange expression on her face. "Mom," she said quietly, "why does Dad laugh like that when he is texting?" I brushed it off. "He is probably watching funny videos," I told her. "You know how he is." But Mia did not look convinced. She watched her father for a long moment, something unreadable in her eyes. Then she turned back to the TV without saying another word. I should have listened to her. Children see things that adults miss. They are not clouded by years of trust and love and history. They see what is right in front of them. But I did not want to see. Not yet. The first crack in my perfect world appeared on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I remember the day clearly because it was raining and I had forgotten my umbrella. I came home from work soaking wet, annoyed and tired, wanting nothing more than a hot shower and a cup of tea. I needed to pay some bills online, so I logged into our joint bank account. We had 3 accounts together: a checking account for everyday expenses, a savings account for emergencies, and a separate savings account that we used for household repairs and vacations. I was checking the balances when I noticed something strange. Our emergency savings account was about $3,000 short. I stared at the screen for a long moment, trying to understand. Had I forgotten about a purchase? Had Kevin mentioned something that slipped my mind? I scrolled through the transaction history, but there was nothing unusual, just a series of ATM withdrawals over the past few weeks. The amounts varied, 200 here, 500 there. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger an alert, but enough to add up. When Kevin came home that evening, I asked him about it. I kept my voice casual, not wanting to sound accusatory. He did not miss a beat. "Oh," that he said, hanging up his jacket. I had to get some work done on my car. You know how expensive mechanics are these days, and I bought a gift for one of our biggest clients. He is about to sign a huge contract with us, so I wanted to make a good impression. It sounded reasonable. Kevin's job required him to maintain relationships with important clients. He had bought gifts before: bottles of wine, golf club memberships, sometimes even weekend getaway packages. It was part of the business. "Sure," I said. "Just let me know next time so I can update our budget." He kissed my forehead and told me not to worry about it. "Everything is under control," he said. But that night, lying in bed next to him, I could not shake the feeling that something was off. It was like a splinter under my skin, too small to see, but impossible to ignore. I told myself I was being paranoid. Kevin loved me. Kevin loved our family. There was nothing to worry about. 2 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night to find Kevin's side of the bed empty. The clock on my nightstand read 2:14 in the morning. I got up to use the bathroom, but as I passed the window, I heard something. A voice. Kevin's voice coming from the backyard. I crept downstairs as quietly as I could and peered through the kitchen window. Kevin was standing on the back porch in his robe phone pressed to his ear. He was pacing back and forth, running his free hand through his hair. I could not hear everything he was saying, but I caught fragments. "I miss you too. I know, baby, I know. I will figure it out. Just give me some time." My heart stopped. Baby. He called someone baby. Not me. I was standing right inside the house, and my husband was outside calling another woman baby. I wanted to throw open the door and confront him right then and there, but something held me back. Fear, maybe. Or the desperate hope that I had misunderstood. Maybe it was a friend going through a hard time. Maybe it was a family member I did not know about. People say strange things at 2 in the morning. It did not have to mean what I thought it meant. Kevin came back inside a few minutes later. I had already retreated to the bedroom, pretending to be asleep. He slipped under the covers beside me, smelling faintly of cigarette smoke. He'd quit smoking 5 years ago. At least that is what he had told me. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He made pancakes for the kids, whistling cheerfully as he flipped them in the pan. He kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work and told me he loved me. I watched him drive away, wondering if I knew him at all. That weekend, Mia started asking questions. She found me in the laundry room folding towels. "Mom," she said, leaning against the doorframe, "can I talk to you about something?" "Of course, sweetie." "What is it?" She hesitated, biting her lower lip the way she always did when she was thinking hard about something. "It is about Dad," she finally said. "He has been acting weird lately." "What do you mean weird, like he is always on his phone?" And he smiles at it in this way that is, I do not know, different. And yesterday he said he had to go meet a client on Saturday, but he was wearing his nice cologne, the one he only wears for special occasions. Does he usually wear cologne to meet clients? I set down the towel I was folding. "Mia," I said gently, "your father has a very demanding job. He has to impress people all the time. I am sure it is nothing to worry about." She did not look convinced, but she nodded anyway. "Okay, Mom, if you say so." After she left, I stood alone in the laundry room for a long time. My 12-year-old daughter had noticed something was wrong. She had noticed before I was willing to admit it to myself. Children are perceptive that way. They do not have the defenses that adults build up over years of disappointment and compromise. They see truth because they have not yet learned how to look away from it. But I was not ready for truth. Not yet. I was still clinging to the life I thought I had, even as it crumbled beneath my feet. So I folded the rest of the towels, put them away in the closet, and pretended that everything was fine. It was not fine. It was so far from fine that I cannot believe I did not see it sooner. But I would see it soon enough. The truth was coming for me whether I wanted it or not. The morning I discovered everything, I woke up to the sound of the shower running. Kevin always took long showers, a habit that used to annoy me, but that I had learned to live with over the years. I rolled over in bed, reaching for my phone to check the time, and that is when I saw it. Kevin's phone was sitting on the nightstand. He never left his phone unattended anymore. Never. But there it was, just inches from my hand, the screen lighting up with a notification. The name on the screen said Brandon with the word partner in parentheses, but the preview of the message did not match the name at all. "Hey baby, I am waiting for you. The new apartment looks amazing. Thank you for taking care of me." My entire body went cold. I lay there frozen for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. The shower was still running. Kevin was still singing some old song from the 80s, completely oblivious to the fact that his world was about to collapse. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped it twice. Kevin had not set it to lock immediately after notifications, so I was able to swipe into the message thread without entering a password. What I found broke me. Hundreds of messages. Thousands. Going back over a year. The other person was not named Brandon at all. Her name was Tiffany. She was 28 years old. Kevin had saved her number under a fake name to hide their conversations from me. I scrolled through the messages with a growing sense of horror. The things they said to each other, the pictures they exchanged, the plans they made. It was all there in black and white. My husband had been living a double life for over a year, and I had been too blind to see it. But the worst part came when I got to the recent messages. Tiffany was asking for things, a car, a vacation, a new designer handbag, and Kevin was promising to provide all of it. "Do not worry, baby," he had written just 3 days ago. "I will get you that money. I know where to find it. I know where to find it." A terrible thought entered my mind. I closed Kevin's messages and opened our banking app on my own phone. My fingers were trembling so badly that I had to enter my password 3 times before getting it right. I navigated to Mia's college fund, the account we had been building for 12 years, the account that held all our hopes and dreams for our daughter's future. The balance was $4,200. I stared at the number, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. There should have been almost $87,000 in that account. We had been depositing $500 every single month for 12 years. Even with no interest, we should have had at least $72,000. With compound interest, we had built it up to nearly $87,000. And now there was $4,200. I checked the transaction history. The withdrawals had started 8 months ago. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there, then larger amounts. 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 in a single transaction just 2 months ago. My husband had drained our daughter's college fund to pay for his mistress's lifestyle. I do not remember making a sound, but I must have because the shower suddenly turned off. I heard Kevin's footsteps approaching the bedroom. I did not have time to think or plan. I just reacted. When he walked out of the bathroom, a towel wrapped around his waist, I was sitting on the bed holding his phone. The message thread with Tiffany was open on the screen. The color drained from his face. "Elsa," he said, "let me explain. Explain what I asked." My voice did not sound like my own. It was cold and hard, like someone else was speaking through me. "Explain how you have been sleeping with a woman named Tiffany for over a year. Explain how you have been spending our money on her apartment and her car and her designer bags. Explain how you stole $83,000 from our daughter's college fund." He tried to come toward me, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Baby, please, you do not understand. Do not call me baby," I said. "You have used that word enough on other people." He stopped. For a moment, something flickered across his face. It might have been guilt. It might have been fear. But then it hardened into something else, something I had never seen before. "Fine," he said. "You want the truth? Here is the truth. Yes, I have been seeing someone else. And yes, I used some of our savings. But you drove me to it, Elsa. You with your endless spreadsheets and your budgets and your obsession with saving every penny. When was the last time you looked at me like I mattered? When was the last time you made me feel wanted? I could not believe what I was hearing. He was blaming me. He had cheated on me, lied to me, stolen from our daughter, and he was blaming me. What about Mia's money, I asked, forcing myself to stay calm. That was not our savings. That was her future. How could you do that to your own child? He shrugged. Mia will be fine. She is smart. She will get scholarships. Or she can take out loans like everyone else. We can build that money back up. It is not a big deal. Not a big deal. 12 years of sacrifice. 12 years of putting her dreams before our own. And to him, it was not a big deal. I want a divorce, I said. His expression changed again. Go ahead, he said. Try it. I will fight you for custody of both kids. I will tell the court you are an unfit mother. I will drag your name through the mud so badly that no one will ever look at you the same way again. And when we split our assets, I will make sure I get my fair share, including this house. I felt like I was going to be sick. This man I had loved for 15 years, the father of my children, the person I had trusted more than anyone else in the world. He was threatening me. He was actually threatening me. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me. Get out of this bedroom. Now. I need to think." He smirked at me. Actually smirked and grabbed his clothes from the closet. He got dressed with casual indifference like we had just had a minor disagreement about what to have for dinner. "Take all the time you need," he said on his way out. "But remember what I said. If you try to leave me, I will destroy you." He closed the door behind him, and I was alone. I sat on the bed for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. My marriage was over. My daughter's future had been stolen, and the man I had trusted was threatening to take everything I had left. I did not know it then, but this was the moment my life truly began to fall apart. The days after that confrontation were the darkest of my life. I moved through them like a ghost, going through the motions of work and parenting, while my mind remained trapped in an endless loop of pain and disbelief. I did not tell the children what had happened. How do you explain to a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old that their father is not who they thought he was? That everything they believed about their family was a lie? I could not find the words, so I said nothing. Kevin, for his part, acted like nothing had changed. He still came home for dinner. He still played video games with Lucas. He still asked Mia about her homework. He was performing the role of devoted father, and he was doing it well. But I saw through the act now. Every smile was fake. Every kind word was a manipulation. He was not a father. He was a con artist who happened to share DNA with my children. I consulted a divorce lawyer during my lunch break one day. Her name was Patricia, and she had kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that I found comforting. I told her everything: the affair, the stolen money, Kevin's threats. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me with sympathy. "I am going to be honest with you," she said. "This is a complicated situation. The college fund account was in both your names, which means legally he had as much right to withdraw from it as you did. Proving theft will be difficult." "But it was for our daughter," I protested. "We both agreed that money was for her." "I understand. And morally, you are absolutely right. But the law does not always align with morality. What we can do is document everything: the affair, the withdrawals, any evidence of financial misconduct. The more ammunition we have, the better your chances of a favorable settlement." I left her office feeling worse than when I arrived. Kevin had thought of everything. He had covered his tracks. And now I was trapped in a house with a man who hated me, pretending that everything was fine for the sake of my children. At night, I would lock myself in the bathroom and cry until my throat was raw. I mourned the marriage I thought I had. I mourned the man I thought I knew. Most of all, I mourned my daughter's dreams, which had been sold off piece by piece to fund a stranger's lifestyle. One night, I could not hold it in anymore. I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom crying into a pillow to muffle the sound when I heard a soft knock on the door. "Mom." It was Mia. I tried to compose myself, wiping my eyes and straightening my clothes. "Come in," I said, hoping my voice did not betray me. She opened the door and looked at me for a long moment. She did not say anything about my red eyes or my tear-stained face. She just walked over and sat down beside me on the floor. "I know something is wrong," she said quietly. "I have known for a while. You do not have to pretend with me, Mom." I broke down again. This time, I did not try to hide it. I told her everything. About her father's affair, about Tiffany, about the money. I tried to be gentle to soften the blow, but there was no gentle way to say what I had to say. When I finished, Mia was silent. Her face was pale, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but she did not cry. She just sat there processing the information with a maturity that broke my heart. My college fund, she finally said. Dad took all of it. Almost all of it. There was about $4,000 left. Baby, I am so sorry. I should have protected it better. I should have. It is not your fault, Mom. She cut me off, her voice firm. You did not do this. He did. She hugged me, then wrapping her thin arms around my shoulders and holding on tight. We sat there together on the floor for a long time, two broken people clinging to each other in the darkness. I will be okay, she whispered. We will figure this out together. I promise. I held her tighter, marveling at the strength of this child I had raised. She was 12 years old and she was comforting me. It should have been the other way around. Mom, she said, pulling back to look at me. I have an idea, but I need you to trust me. What kind of idea, I cannot tell you yet. I need to find out some things first, but promise me you will not give up. Promise me you will keep fighting. I looked into her eyes, those determined eyes that had captivated me from the moment she was born. I promise, I said. Good. She stood up and headed for the door. Then she paused and looked back at me. Dad thinks he is so smart, but he forgot something important. What is that? He forgot that I am smarter. She left the room before I could respond. I sat there in the darkness, confused but strangely hopeful. I had no idea what my daughter was planning, but for the first time since discovering Kevin's betrayal, I felt something other than despair. I felt the faintest spark of possibility. Over the next few weeks, I noticed Mia behaving differently. She was always observant, always paying attention to things other people missed, but now she seemed to be watching her father with particular intensity. Every time Kevin walked into a room, her eyes would follow him. Every time he picked up his phone, she would note it. She was gathering information, and she was doing it with a patience and precision that amazed me. I did not ask her what she was doing. She had asked me to trust her, and I did. Whatever plan she was forming, I had faith that she knew what she was doing. This was the girl who had won every science fair since 3rd grade, the girl whose teachers called her exceptional and gifted, and one of the brightest students they had ever taught. If anyone could outthink Kevin, it was her. One Saturday afternoon, Kevin announced that he had to go meet a client. He got dressed in his nicest clothes, put on that expensive cologne, and headed out the door with a cheerful wave. Lucas was at a friend's house for a sleepover. I was alone in the kitchen when Mia appeared beside me. He is going to see her, she said matter-of-factly. I want to use his iPad while he is gone. Why? Because I know his password. He uses the same one for everything, and I know there are things on that iPad that can help us. I hesitated. What Mia was proposing felt like a violation of privacy. But then again, Kevin had violated our trust in ways far worse than looking at an iPad. He had stolen from his own daughter. He did not deserve privacy. Be careful, I said. I will. She disappeared into the living room. I stayed in the kitchen, my heart pounding with nervous anticipation. I did not know what she would find. Part of me was afraid to know. She came back an hour later, her face pale but triumphant. Mom, she said, you need to see this. She led me to her bedroom where she had her laptop open on the desk. The screen was filled with screenshots, emails, text messages, bank statements, receipts. I found everything she said. He has been using company money to pay for that woman's apartment. Look at this. She pointed to a screenshot of a lease agreement. It was for an apartment in downtown Portland signed by Kevin. But the payment method listed was not a personal account. It was the dealership's corporate credit card. He is stealing from his company, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. This is embezzlement. That is not all. Mia clicked to another screenshot. He opened a credit card in your name, Mom. Look. I stared at the screen. It was a credit card statement for an account I had never opened. The card was in my name at our home address. The balance was over $15,000. All the charges were for expensive restaurants, hotels, jewelry stores, boutiques. None of them were mine. He committed identity fraud, I whispered. Mia nodded grimly. There is more. He has been talking to that woman about moving money to an offshore account. I found emails about it. They are planning to hide assets before the divorce. I sat down heavily on Mia's bed, overwhelmed by the scope of Kevin's deception. He had not just cheated on me. He had not just stolen from our daughter. He was systematically planning to destroy me financially and legally, all while pretending to be a devoted father. "How did you find all this?" I asked. He uses the same password for everything Mia said simply. His birthday, 101-81982, October 18th, 1982. He thinks he is so clever, but he is actually really predictable. Despite everything, I almost laughed. My 12-year-old daughter had cracked her father's entire digital life with his birthday. I sent all of this to my email. Mia continued, "I have copies of everything. He cannot delete it now." "Mia," I said, reaching out to take her hand, "do you understand how serious this is? What you found could send your father to prison." She met my eyes steadily. "I know," she said, "but he stole from me, Mom. He stole my future. And he was going to steal yours, too. I was not going to let him get away with it." I pulled her into a hug, holding her close as tears streamed down my face. But these were not tears of despair. They were tears of pride. This incredible child, this brave and brilliant girl, had just given me the weapons I needed to fight back. "What do we do now?" I asked. Mia smiled, that same determined smile I had seen on her face when she was a baby, reaching for something she wanted. Now she said we make a plan. The next morning, I called Patricia, my divorce lawyer, and told her I had new evidence. A lot of it, I said. Enough to change everything. I met her at her office that afternoon, bringing a USB drive loaded with every screenshot Mia had collected. Patricia's eyes widened as she scrolled through the files. "This is extraordinary," she said. "Where did you get all this?" "My daughter found it. Your 12-year-old daughter. She is exceptional." Patricia sat back in her chair, processing the information. "Elsa," she said slowly, "this changes your case completely. What Kevin has done is not just grounds for divorce. It is criminal, embezzlement, identity theft, potential wire fraud if he has been moving money overseas. We are not just talking about a messy divorce anymore. We are talking about felony charges." I nodded. "I know. Have you thought about what you want to do?" "I want justice," I said, "for myself and for my daughter. I want him to face consequences for what he has done." Patricia smiled. "Then let us get to work." Over the next week, we built our case methodically. Patricia connected me with a forensic accountant who traced every dollar Kevin had stolen. She also reached out to the general manager of the dealership where Kevin worked, a man named Douglas Harrington, who I had met at several company events over the years. I called Douglas myself to request a meeting. He agreed, sounding confused, but curious. When I walked into his office 3 days later, I brought copies of everything. "I need to show you something," I said, "and I apologize in advance. This is going to be unpleasant." Douglas listened in silence as I laid out the evidence of Kevin's embezzlement, the company credit card charges for Tiffany's apartment, the fake expense reports, the unauthorized withdrawals from the dealership's petty cash fund. By the time I finished, his face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "I trusted that man," he said through gritted teeth. "I gave him every opportunity to succeed, and this is how he repays me. I am sorry to be the one to tell you this," I said, "but I thought you deserved to know." Douglas stood up and shook my hand firmly. "You did the right thing. I am going to launch an internal investigation immediately, and when we confirm what you have shown me, Kevin is finished. Not just at this company. In this industry, I will make sure everyone knows what kind of man he really is." I left his office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The dominoes started falling quickly after that. The dealership's internal audit revealed that Kevin had embezzled over $45,000 over the past year. He was terminated, immediately escorted out of the building by security guards, while his colleagues watched in shock. Douglas filed a police report the same day. Meanwhile, Patricia filed for divorce on my behalf, citing adultery, financial abuse, and fraud. She included all the evidence Mia had gathered plus the documentation from the forensic accountant. The judge who reviewed our initial filing was so disturbed by what he saw that he immediately issued a temporary order, freezing all of Kevin's assets and granting me exclusive possession of our home. Kevin, who had been so confident in his threats, suddenly found himself on the defensive. He called me repeatedly, sometimes begging and sometimes threatening. I did not answer. Patricia had advised me to let everything go through legal channels, and I followed her advice to the letter. One evening, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello, is this Elsa?" A woman's voice, young and unfamiliar. "Who is this?" There was a pause. "This is Tiffany." I almost hung up, but something made me stay on the line. Morbid curiosity, perhaps, or the need to understand what kind of person could knowingly participate in destroying a family. "What do you want?" I asked. "I just wanted to say—" She paused again, and when she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "I did not know. About the college fund, I mean. Kevin told me he had money saved up from investments. He never told me it was his daughter's future. Does that make it better?" "No. I know it does not. I heard about what happened. The arrest. Everything. And I wanted you to know that I am not going to fight for him. Whatever happens to him, he deserves it." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding my phone, processing what had just happened. Tiffany had abandoned Kevin the moment she realized he was going to face consequences. The woman he had sacrificed everything for had left him without a second thought. There was a certain poetry in that. The court proceedings moved faster than I expected. Kevin's lawyer tried to argue that he was a devoted father who had made some poor financial decisions under stress. But the evidence against him was overwhelming. The judge was particularly moved by the documents showing how Kevin had systematically drained his daughter's college fund to finance his affair. In the end, I got everything. Full custody of both children, the house, Kevin's retirement accounts, and a court order requiring him to repay every dollar he had stolen from Mia's college fund, plus interest, plus damages. The criminal charges would be handled separately, but Patricia assured me that Kevin was facing serious prison time. The day the divorce was finalized, Mia and Lucas and I went out for ice cream. We sat in a little shop downtown eating sundaes and watching people walk by on the street. Lucas was blissfully unaware of most of what had happened. He just knew that Dad had done something bad and was going to be away for a while. He seemed to accept this with the resilience of childhood, already making plans for how to redecorate his room. But Mia understood everything. She sat beside me quietly eating her mint chocolate chip, and when I caught her eye, she smiled. "We did it, Mom," she said. "No," I corrected her. "You did it. I would not have known any of that without you." She shrugged, but I could see the pride in her eyes. I just did what needed to be done. I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You are the bravest person I know," I said, "and I am so proud to be your mother." She squeezed back. "I am proud to be your daughter." We finished our ice cream as the sun set over Portland, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was not a happy ending exactly. There was still so much pain to process, so many wounds that needed time to heal. But it was an ending, and it was the beginning of something new. 2 years have passed since that terrible spring when my world fell apart. As I sit here telling you this story, I can hardly recognize the woman I was back then. The woman who trusted blindly. The woman who ignored the warning signs because she was afraid of what they meant. The woman who almost let her fear destroy her. That woman is gone now. In her place is someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who learned in the hardest possible way that you cannot build a future on a foundation of lies. The first few months after the divorce were brutal. I did not sleep well. I jumped at every sound, half expecting Kevin to appear and make good on his threats. I went to therapy, joining a support group for women who had been betrayed by their partners. I sat in circles with strangers who became friends, listening to their stories and sharing my own. I learned that I was not alone, that my experience, as painful as it was devastatingly common. Slowly, gradually, I started to heal. I threw myself into my work and was rewarded with a promotion to senior accountant. I started exercising again, taking long walks through the park near our house. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage, women who welcomed me back without judgment or blame. And through it all, Mia and Lucas were my anchors. They kept me grounded when I wanted to float away. They made me laugh when I thought I had forgotten how. They reminded me every single day why I had fought so hard to protect them. Mia is 14 now, a freshman in high school with dreams as big as ever. Her college fund has been fully restored, partly through Kevin's court-ordered payments and partly through a small windfall I received when I sold some assets during the divorce. She does not talk about MIT as much anymore. Instead, she talks about wanting to stay close to home, to be there for Lucas and me. "Mom," she said to me recently, "I have been thinking. Maybe I do not need to go to some fancy school across the country. Maybe I can find what I need right here." I was folding laundry when she said this, and I had to set down the shirt I was holding to look at her properly. "Mia," I said, "you have dreamed of MIT since you were 9 years old. Do not give that up because of what happened. That was never your burden to carry." She smiled at me, that wise and gentle smile that makes her seem so much older than her years. "I know," she said, "but maybe my dreams are changing. Maybe what I want now is different from what I wanted when I was 9. And that is okay, right?" I pulled her into a hug. "Of course it is okay," I said. "Whatever you want, wherever you go, I will support you. Always." She hugged me back tightly. "I know, Mom. I know." Kevin is in prison now, serving a 3-year sentence for embezzlement and fraud. I do not visit him. Neither do the children. He sends letters sometimes, long, rambling apologies that I do not read. I threw the first few away. Now I just mark them return to sender and put them back in the mailbox. I do not hate him anymore. That might surprise you after everything I have told you. But hate is exhausting. It takes energy that I would rather spend on the people I love. So I have let it go. Not for Kevin's sake, but for my own. Forgiveness, I have learned, is not about the person who hurt you. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of their actions. I think about what he did sometimes, the lies, the betrayal, the way he smiled at our daughter while secretly stealing her future. And I feel sad. Not angry anymore, just sad. Sad for the man he could have been. Sad for the family we could have had. Sad for the waste of it all. But then I look at Mia and Lucas. I see how strong they have become, how resilient, how full of hope despite everything they have been through. And I realize that we did not just survive Kevin's betrayal. We grew from it. We became better versions of ourselves. If you are watching this and going through something similar, I want you to know that it gets better. I know that sounds like a cliche. I know that when you are in the middle of the pain, better seems impossible. But it is not. You will find your strength. You will find your voice. And sometimes the help you need will come from the most unexpected places. For me, it came from a 12-year-old girl who refused to let her father get away with his crimes. A girl who saw through the lies when I could not. A girl who taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to act despite it. So here is my question for you. Has there ever been a time when someone you least expected stepped up to help you through a crisis? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. We learn from each other's experiences. We grow stronger by sharing our truths. If this story touched you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary strength in difficult circumstances. And most importantly, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Remember that you are worthy of love and respect no matter what anyone else has tried to make you believe. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for reminding me that I am not alone. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never underestimate the power of a determined heart.